G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it.
Welcome everyone. Today I'm interviewing Laura Hindson, who is CEO and founder of Madam Tiger based in Melbourne, Australia. So thanks for your time, Laura.
Thanks for having me.
Now, we always kick this off just to give a bit of context how we know each other. I actually read an article on Smart Company about your business. It's probably late last year, which was made me very curious at the very least. And so I reached out to you. And you're kind enough to spare a bit of time to have a chat about your business journey to date, and looking forward to it. So, to kick things off, tell us a little bit about your background and your business.
Yeah, sure. So my background has always been in food marketing. So I've worked for businesses like Campbell Arnott's, Lion Dairy and Drinks, looking after the Dare Ice Coffee portfolio. And before I went on maternity leave to have the twins, I was head of marketing at Remedy Kombucha. So always kind of been in a marketing team, which is one function that makes up a very big business with lots of people within it. And then after going on maternity leave to have the twins, ventured out on my own to do Madam Tiger. There's a lot of days where I do miss those big teams of salespeople and, supply chain and manufacturing people, but we make it work with a very small, lean team at the moment. We started Madam Tiger back in 2020, and it was probably about 3 years of behind the scenes hard work to develop the formulation and set up a factory. And then we've been selling since June last year. So it's been quite a journey.
Yes, it always is. It tends to be a steep learning curve, right? And I guess you got a good background to start with, but it's never the same when it's your own business.
No, it's not. And I think there's probably a naivety that comes with not knowing what's ahead, and potentially if you did know how hard it was going to be, would you actually do it? I don't know. Like to think yes, but I'm not sure.
Well, and as you say, you've had twins, just before that, so you've had a bit going on, so it's always a balancing act. So maybe just tell our audience a bit about the actual business, what it does, and specifically.
Yeah, sure. So we make tiger nut milk. So we first came across tiger nuts. We heard about them from my father-in-law, who's from Mali in West Africa. And he sort of started telling us about tiger nuts, how nutritious they were, how sustainable they were. And we sort of couldn't quite believe at the time that they weren't at all really present in the Australian market. I think, there were some quite niche health food stores that knew about them, but they weren't something that was kind of generally known by most Australians. And we really wanted to kind of take advantage of the nutritional properties of it. So we got in touch with the female farming collective in Burkina Faso, West Africa, and we bought their first harvest of tiger nuts in 2020, which was 6 tons of tiger nuts. And we brought those into Australia and started work on formulating a tiger nut milk. We quickly realised that we were going to have to set up a tiger nut milk manufacturing facility, because buying tiger nuts straight from the farm in 25 kilo bags isn't really how contract manufacturers like to receive things. They kind of like more highly processed powders or liquids. So we set up a tiger nut milk manufacturing facility in Carrum Downs in the southeastern suburbs of Melbourne. And we've got 2 varieties of milk. So we've got the original, which has the protein, vitamins and minerals to rival full cream cow's milk. So it's really good for kids with dairy allergies. And then we have the barista tiger nut milk, which is it's got the same ingredients as the original. It's just got less protein. We found we use a faba bean protein and it was a little bit intense in flavour. So the barista is kind of a more neutral milk. It's very well balanced and it goes really nicely with coffee and hot drinks.
Yes, as I said to you off air, I haven't come across neither your business or the actual tiger nut. So, yeah, I'm certainly be interested to having a coffee with it at some point. So I have to find out where the cafes you stock.
Yeah.
So can you share? So when you started out in 2020, I guess, and then your production came later. So you happy to share sort of your how old you were when you started?
Yeah, I'm 38 at the moment. So
34.
yeah, 34. It's probably, I mean, is there ever a good time to start something? There's probably not. And, with two little twin girls at home, and it wasn't a good time, but then, when is a good time?
Mm.
So yeah, it was quite a juggle, and it still is a juggle. And we wouldn't kind of get through it if we didn't have my parents close by to help with pickups and drop-offs and things like that. Because I think one of the hard things about starting a business is, the hours you work are not limited to what you might work if you worked for a big corporation or a small one. And then, just the responsibilities, at the moment we're in the peak time of getting our business out there. And so with that comes, we did the big vegan market in at the Royal Exhibition Buildings in Carlton all weekend. And then we'll have the Melbourne International Coffee Expo in a couple of weeks. So all of those things tend to take up a lot of what used to be downtime.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah.
So albeit you've only been going a few years, what sort of growth have you managed to achieve over the first few years?
Yeah. So last year was finding our feet. It was kind of, working out how we're going to do this, who are we going to work with, what distributors are right for us. And then sort of in January this year, things really kicked into gear, and the growth that we're achieving at the moment is about 35% month on month. So it's a little hard to keep up with, but we're certainly, getting there. We've had 2 out of stock so far. Just sales have come in a bit quicker than we thought, and it's caught us a little off guard. But I mean, the good thing with what we've built in our tiger nut milk manufacturing facility is we've built the capacity to grow very much into what we've built. So there's a lot of headroom to grow. I think some of, the growth in the last couple of months just caught us a little bit by surprise.
Yeah. That's always a good strategy to looking ahead as far as infrastructure and the like. So, yeah, that's good. And what about full-time equivalent team members? How many have you got there at the moment?
So it's my brother and I that work full-time on the business. We hired my brother in January 2023. So he's a little over a year with the business, and that was just such a good decision for us. I mean, I think the early days of a startup, to try and define some sort of a job description is near impossible. And so to have someone that, is agile enough to step into any role on any day is exactly what we need. So it's the 2 of us at the moment. And then we have some contractors that help us out on production day. And then we've got some contract people on helping us out with sales as well.
Yeah, good. How doesn't stretch the relationship with your brother from time to time?
I don't think so. Not yet.
Good. That's all right then. Not yet, yeah. Very good. Well, it sounds like exciting times ahead and some good growth. I guess it's whenever growing a small business, it's really important just to make sure you're always got control as much as you can.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, you work so hard on it, and, things like taking a salary are just not really on the cards for me at the moment, but that you're working towards something, hopefully bigger than that. So it's worth it.
Yeah, exactly. Has there been a moment you felt like you'd succeeded so far?
Yeah, I think when we did, it was the first event that we did when we got the formulation right. And it was the food service show last year, and we were down to the wire. So I had not got the formulation right, and we produced the week before the food service show. So we had this stand booked at the food service show, paid for, all the marketing done. and we didn't even know if we were going to have product to serve at it. So it was a little bit of a risky time, and we got the formulation right. And I had a friend of mine who has a coffee roasting business, and she was making coffees for us at the food service show. And it was just that moment where something that you've made is put in front of people, people are trying it and they're giving you positive feedback, and just not really knowing how to respond to that. You kind of almost take a moment and go, oh, wow, like, I think we're okay here. This is going to work. Because it's sort of been like 3 years of a lot more errors than wins. So to kind of stand there and just, I guess, hear live from people that, didn't need to give you good feedback. They didn't owe you anything. Tasting the product and reviewing it so highly was just, it was probably a moment where I went, okay, this is going to work.
Yep, you nailed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that feedback is so important, as you've done too. So you just don't sort of go out there and just hope for the best.
And we didn't get it right with the formulation to start with, and I think it's been, you have to have the strength to go, that's not right. I didn't get it right, but I'm going to keep going until we do.
Yeah.
And seek feedback and kind of revisit things and learn more, because, my background is not in food science. Perhaps we would have got there quicker if I was a food scientist. But, I do love cooking, and I love food, and I love tasting things and, tinkering to get things right. Probably the recipe of our tiger nut milk challenged me the most, and, almost tested whether I did really like it or not. But yeah, I've learned a lot along the way.
Yeah, I think leave the ego at the door. I think it's important when you're growing a small business.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, what does success look like to you?
I'd really like to build a brand that is kind of known nationally for a really nutritious, sustainable, good tasting milk. I think, we're such a small business at this stage, but, we're getting such good feedback from consumers and customers, and we're experiencing that growth. But to be able to kind of build it up to be a well-known national brand would be success for us. We are also looking at some international opportunities. So we're looking at New Zealand, Southeast Asia, and China. So we'd love to kind of venture abroad as well. So, we've got a lot to look forward to and a lot to grow into. But yeah, I think, we're a brand that is so, like, holds true to our values so much. Like, we're just about to, we're just finalising the contract for the Farming Collective's 2024 harvest of tiger nuts, and it went from 6 tons in 2020 to then 7 ton to then 15 ton to 30 ton last year, and then this harvest is 60 ton.
Oh, wow.
So we've been able to give the collective kind of the confidence to grow at such a massive rate. And I think it just shows, I guess, as a business, like, what our commitment is to doing the right thing and doing it properly. So yeah, we'll kind of take that with us as we grow.
So you just mentioned the collective. Maybe just let our listeners know what you mean by the collective.
Yeah, sure. So we got onto a female farming collective. It was through my father-in-law. There was a documentary that aired at the African Film Festival in Auckland, which he organises every year. And the documentary followed the journey of tiger nut farmers in Burkina Faso. So tiger nuts are an annual crop, and they were promised a certain price by this big, huge Spanish company that bought the tiger nuts from West Africa and then, like, re-exported them to the rest of the world. So they'd sell them to, like, Whole Foods in the US for probably $10 a kilo. And the collective harvested the tiger nuts, got them all ready, got them sent to Spain in containers. And this big Spanish company said, we're not going to take the tiger nuts. There's something wrong with them. And if you know anything about container shipping, there is a one-way seal on containers, and you cannot just walk up and open a container. You have to have some sort of a grinder or something to break it open. And the seal had never been broken on these containers, so no one had even checked whether there was anything wrong with them. So the containers sat in the docks in Spain for 12 months. And then this big company said, we'll take them off your hands for 40 cents a kilo. So, these families haven't been paid for 12 months for an annual crop. And then when they do, they're offering them about a fifth of what they were promised. So the backlog of devastation was quite intense. And they did win a court case eventually, but it's kind of too little too late. So the collective wanted to band together and kind of cut out this problematic middleman and sell directly to companies like ours. So that's when we bought the Female Farming Collective's first harvest of tiger nuts, kind of as a collective rebounding from that awful devastation. And so, when we first bought it, it was 6 ton and then has been able to grow to 60 tons. So it's a nice growth story of kind of helping those families bounce back from a pretty awful situation and then giving them the confidence to grow as we're able to grow.
Oh, that's amazing. And what an impact you're having on so many families. And it's a great story.
Yeah.
Is there one thing you'd recommend in marketing a fast-growing business, which you're now becoming? Any tip?
I think it's standing out. We really wanted, Yak and I always wanted to start a business, but we only wanted to do it if we had something truly unique and something different to bring something new to the market. And I think we've found that in tiger nut milk. But then from the marketing side of things, you've got to stand out, you've got to have something different, and you've got to, have a really kind of bold, unique brand personality. And when we were designing our packaging, the thinking behind that was, gosh, if we run out of money and we've got no money to spend on marketing, the packaging has to look so good that people will look at it and think, oh, wow, what's that? I've got to try it. And I think we have achieved that with the packaging. It is, a real standout. So I think it's, trying to find what it is the personality of your brand, and then kind of really, I guess, holding true to that and being quite bold and making sure it's different.
Yeah, no, very good approach. I actually did a podcast with a chap called Alex Smith last year, and he's written a book called No Bullshit Strategy, and it's worth a read. And that's where he comes from. You've got to be different.
Yep.
And if you can say you're the only, say, milk manufacturer that does tiger nut milk or whatever it is, then the market tends to reward you. There's no point saying you're the best, because what is the best? So being very clear on how you're different, which then can dictate, obviously, your the execution of your strategy that forms around it. So that's a great start. Well done.
Thank you.
So how have you funded your business so far?
Yeah, it's been a hard one. We did a very early round of family and friends to get a little bit of money together to, I guess, work out the idea, work out the branding, kind of fund some of that early formulation work. And it quickly became apparent that we were going to need to build a facility, which we just personally couldn't afford to fund. So we did a seed round, I guess you would call it, where we raised $1 million for 10% of the company. So that was a pre-revenue valuation of $10 million. And it was very much kind of led by the idea, the strength of the brand that we had put together, the fact that no one else was doing tiger nut milk, and that this was quite a groundbreaking idea, concept, and then brand to lead it to market with. So yeah, that's how we funded the business. I mean, we've put in a lot personally on top of that, because the pressures of the cash flow of growth are very real for us. So yeah, we sold our house that we'd renovated a few years ago, luckily just before the property market dropped, and have rented since, and those profits that we made on the house have kind of gone into the business. So we're very much that kind of small business, all in, situation, I guess.
When did you raise the capital?
It was at the start of 2023.
Right. Yep.
A different environment to what we're in now.
Yep.
Interest rates weren't what they are now.
Yes.
Financial pressures weren't what they are now. So, yeah.
I think it certainly sounds like to the point that you're obviously able to communicate your difference in the marketplace, which sounds like it played a reasonable part in securing the funding.
Yeah, and I think we've been able to, it did take us a little bit longer than we initially thought to launch it, just because we had some challenges around getting the formulation right. But, we're on track, sort of doing the numbers that we said that we were going to do. So I think that always helps. Yeah. And, one of the big focuses that we put in the initial model was building a really strong e-commerce channel, which is quite different to what, bigger brands are able to do. And so we've really done a lot to grow our e-com channel, which, is more profitable for us because we sell at retail as opposed to kind of giving chunks to distributors and stores along the way. So, we've done a lot to kind of build that up, and we'll continue to focus on building that channel.
Yeah, no, that's great. What about government grants?
Yeah, we've been fortunate enough to apply for and get the research and development grant. So that has really helped us. Obviously what we're doing is very new. It's not like you can kind of go and buy a tiger nut milk manufacturing line off the shelf. There was a lot of R&D and commissioning work that needed to happen to get it right. So we were very fortunate to get the research and development grant a couple of years in a row. And that's basically at tax time backward looking, and you get a percentage of what you've spent. So you still have to front the money first, which is hard and a challenge. But yeah, we were able to do that.
Yeah, that's good. Always helps, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's a few. I mean, there's so many grants out there. Part of the challenge is actually navigating them to find out what's out there and what's applicable. But there is a few export-related grants. So I guess when you start to look to go offshore, then that'd certainly be something to look at.
Yeah, it's on my list to start looking into.
Yeah, good. So if you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
Yeah, I would. I think, one of the things that I almost have a love-hate relationship with is doing these expos and markets and things, because you talk to consumers and you get such live feedback. But I think what we've been able to do has filled a gap for a lot of people in plant-based milk. And one of the big things is us not using seed oil. So we use Australian olive oil. So we get a lot of feedback about that. And then the sustainability component of it as well. So tiger nuts only need rainwater to grow. And we've managed to measure our climate footprint through Carbon Cloud. So our milk is it's either the lowest or one of the lowest climate footprints of milk on the Australian market. And so I think getting live feedback from consumers saying, we love this milk because there's no seed oils and you use olive oil. We love it because it's a low climate footprint, or it doesn't use loads, tons of water to grow. Really makes me think that we did the right thing in entering this category, even though, people did say to us, not another plant-based milk and things like that. We did definitely hear that along the way, but I think we've been able to create something unique, that is really kind of holds true to our values, and consumers are seeing that. And so I think I'd definitely do it all again.
Yeah, no, good. And what about the most stressful point in your small business journey so far?
When I wasn't sure if we were going to be able to get the formulation right, there was like the pressure of that was quite unbelievable. We had taken all this funding, we'd said we could do it, and I wasn't getting it right. And that was just epically hard because, you don't get it right. And then you sort of, I don't know, I can't even remember where I heard this, but someone said that, to create something successfully, like that's truly innovative, you almost have to be a little bit delusional, because you have to be able to like look someone in the eye who thinks you're crazy and thinks you're not going to be able to do it, and know that you're going to do it and still do it. And there was definitely times in that, like, I'm not getting this formulation right, where I'm thinking, am I actually delusional? And am I going to be able to do this? Have we taken on more than we can deal with right now? So that was probably the hardest point. But yeah, watching people drink it, and, one of the reactions we go, oh, this is actually good. That's almost my favorite reaction, because it's like, people don't know what to expect, but hearing that reaction is just so rewarding, knowing what we went through to get it right.
Yeah, no, that's great. And what area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
Definitely the manufacturing side of things. It's quite hard, manufacturing. And it wasn't something, I'd walked through factories and done tours, as a marketing person, and, always appreciated the scale and the complexities of this equipment, but actually being the one in charge of operating it it's been really hard. And so learning the ropes of that and teaching myself in a lot of ways, and learning from mistakes, that's been the biggest growth area, and probably the biggest area that it was just a gaping hole of the gap when I started this. So it's sort of funny looking back now that, we manufacture tiger nut milk, and we're really good at it.
Yeah, exactly. So what have you enjoyed the least about managing growth?
I think what should feel like wins sometimes comes with an immense amount of stress. So, when you've got as the growth is increasing, but you've got to pay for the ingredients and produce before you sell, and that kind of, I guess it's just, yeah, you sort of, what you should be able to do is sit back and enjoy those wins. But when you're kind of solely responsible for the, making that growth happen, the stress of that can be quite overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah, I understand. What do you love most about growing your business?
I always had like a level of frustration when I worked for other businesses, because, I would think that, oh, we should be doing it this way. And you kind of had the constraints, or you were hamstrung by different elements of the business. And I think being able to do it truly the way we want to do it has been really rewarding. So, we could have gone down the path of, getting highly processed tiger nuts in from a big company that bought them from this particular Spanish company, but it wasn't the way we wanted to do business. The way we wanted to do business was, get the tiger nuts from the female farming collective and make our milk in Melbourne. And so I think doing business the way that we want to do it, it has been really important. Yeah.
Well, like you say, sticking to your values is so important.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. What's been your biggest mindset shift for you in your small business journey so far?
I think probably like persistence has been, I always thought that I was, a persistent person, but I think the level of persistence that I've had to have has far outweighed what I thought I was capable of. I think, you know, how you carry yourself when the cards are down is, you know, almost pivotal to your success running a small business. So, yeah, I think persistence has been a really big thing for me. And just, you know, when normally you think there's, you know, no way out or you can't recover from this, having to kind of pick yourself up and go, yep, no, I can do this. We can get out of this. We can get through this. We can, you know, move on. That's been sort of one of the biggest things for me.
Yeah, and I think being very clear on your vision, your purpose and your values helps that, and I guess gives you that focus to sort of help you not sort of deviate, because that's easy to do, get distracted with those bright, shiny objects as a business owner.
Yeah, and I think, you know, sometimes when you're making decisions that potentially cost more to do the right thing, it's, you know, doing that because, you know, that's what you know is right and that's what you said you were going to do, and sticking to it and feeling good about it instead of, you know, yeah.
Yeah. I think, albeit I think that's all very good, and it does give you direction. Equally, in running a business, there's got to be that economic engine aspect to it, because there's no point doing all this if you're not going to make any money and can't survive.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's just getting that balance right, which sounds like you're getting there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what's the number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
I think probably the ability just to jump in and do anything. So I think when you start out a small business, you probably don't understand the variety of what you're going to need to do. But jumping in and kind of doing whatever needs to be done on that particular day is really important. In terms of, like, I guess a habit, you know, you just have to be so damn organized.
Mm.
You know, there's always more that you could do in a day than you possibly have time for. So just the juggle of organizing and prioritizing, okay, this is what needs to be done so that the business can keep going today. This is what needs to be done so that the business can keep growing at the rate it's growing. And then, you know, try and shuffle the rest based on the time that you've got. And, you know, I think, like, when I was certainly in roles at other organizations, you'd get to everything because, you know, even if you worked longer hours, you'd be able to do that. Whereas I think in this job, there's always things that you're never going to get to, and kind of being good at prioritizing and juggling is pretty important. Yeah,
I think I learned a saying a few years ago from a mindset coach. It's either the 3 Ds: you either do it, delegate it, or ditch it.
Yep.
A good little saying.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Want specific advice to help you get your business through its #1 growth challenge? Book a free 20-minute growth chat with me, Troy, the founder of Grow a Small Business. I'll recommend some resources which will help you grow your business with ease so you can live the lifestyle you've signed up for. Go to growasmallbusiness.com and click on Growth Chat.
Now, you've only got a few people in your team. You got your brother, you mentioned, and a few contractors. So is there any sort of wins, mistakes, or advice around the process so far, and maybe as much with the contractors, how you've sort of added those?
Yeah, I think, you know, we're still very early on our journey with people. Certainly the wins with my brother coming on board were just that he was definitely the right person for us to hire in terms of how much his willingness to get in and do whatever it takes to help us. And then, you know, the salespeople that we're sort of in the early days of working with now that are contractors, I think one of the great things is when people start to come to you because they've heard about your brand and they love what you do and they're really passionate about the product. And that's kind of such a great way to find people, is people that are truly passionate about what you've done, and they use the product themselves, like they drink the milk daily, or they work in a cafe where it's, you know, it's sold and used for coffees there, and they love it. So, you know that they're going to exude that level of passion when they're talking to customers to try and get them on board. So, I think being able to have a brand that's strong and a product that's strong enough to attract people to come to you is always a good one. But I mean, we're so early on our people journey, yet we've got those mistakes ahead of us and those wins probably ahead of us.
But I think the same sort of principle is sort of sticking to your values is important, which it sounds like what you've done even with the contractors. So
yeah,
they share your values and I guess as much the vision. I think that's a big part of getting the right people on your team, but employment or contractors or otherwise. So
yeah, exactly. And at the end of the day, they're representing, your brand, and they're the face of your brand, in that moment when they're having that conversation. So, they do have to represent your values, and they do have to kind of show the level of passion that you would want and expect, and show yourself in that scenario.
That's right. Yep. So what are some things you'd recommend in building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with growth?
I think I like this idea of a bit of a no bullshit culture.
Yeah.
So, I would say that is probably a little inherent in my personality. It's certainly been inherent in the way that we've approached sustainability and our ethical sourcing, and a lot of the things that have made us who we are as a brand. And I think that should carry through to culture. We should, be able to have the right conversations and real conversations, and, enjoy the journey in a kind of very real and authentic way.
And what about handling balance? Always a challenge for small business owners, and probably with twins as well. That sort of adds to it, and so you got your partner. So how have you handled that?
Yeah, I mean, that's always a tough one. We wouldn't survive without my parents. So we live in Mount Martha down the Mornington Peninsula, and they live around a couple of corners from us, and they're very helpful with drop-offs and pickups and things like that. So, we're lucky to have a great support network around us, because the juggle can be pretty intense, particularly when, you throw weekend work into the mix as well. But we just have to be pretty organized and kind of supportive of each other, and, working with each other. And, it is hard. Like sometimes when I'm away for a whole weekend and an expo or a market, you come back and the kids have been missing me, and that's tough. But it's not going to be like this forever. And, we are very lucky to have the support network that we do, but the juggle is real.
Yes. As you say, support network so important.
Yeah, for sure.
So how much professional development have you invested in yourself?
Professional development at the moment it's such a tough one, because you want to do it, but it probably comes back to the juggle of what you've got time to do. I caught up with a friend who's starting a business last week, and she was asking me about what I've done in the startup community and what I've involved myself in. And to be honest with you, it's been very little, if anything at all, purely because, managing the business and then the family, there's not really very much time at the end of the day. So often I'll see courses or opportunities and things, and I've just, are not able to take them up. Hopefully that will change in the next 12 months. And I think one of the things that I've been lucky in my career is that I have worked for such big businesses that prioritize that previously. So I have been fortunate enough to get a lot of that throughout my career. It just hasn't been something that has been doable since I started this business, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think it's always a challenge, but I think even if you listen to a few podcasts or an ebook when you're sort of doing stuff that, I don't know, things might be in the garden or whatever, just
Yeah.
you can always sort of do little things like that, can't you?
Yeah, I just recently read Radek Saleh's book and I found that incredibly helpful. I think that was really good at putting into perspective. I think he was really honest about the highs and the lows, and I felt like he was quite brutally honest about some of the lows, and I found that really helpful, knowing, to build a business as successful as what Swiss was and is still. But to know that, whilst it looked so incredibly successful up front and, to hear some of the things that were going on behind the scenes was refreshing and validating, but then also motivating.
Mm. Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Have you had any mentors or coaches so far?
Yeah, I've got a couple, probably not as formal as what I'd like and what it could or should be. But I do have someone who's the sales director of a very big beverage company that is always helps me out and, can always give her a call on the way home and things like that. But probably haven't formalized a mentor, which, is probably something that I should look at doing over the next 12 months.
Yeah, I think it's all part of that support network you're talking about. So, and maybe, in different areas, as you say, that, like you said, manufacturing is all pretty new to you. So seeking someone out in that space. And I think the more mentors and coaches you've got around you, it's part of your support network, the better.
Yeah, exactly. I think I've tapped into different people's knowledge at different points along the way when I've been facing a particular problem, but I haven't had, I guess, the consistency of a mentor all the way through.
Yep.
Which is something I probably should change, this year. I'd certainly benefit from it. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly something to explore, that's for sure.
Mm.
So you've got external investors. So is there a board of directors or advisors or anything of that nature?
No, there's not. We haven't formalized any of that yet, just because we're such a small business. And, my theory is that all of our efforts should be focused on growth and moving forward and putting all of the time and energy into the growth of the business. And that's certainly been the right approach and made a lot of sense for us. That's going to change in the future. As to when that will change, I'm not exactly sure. But it just didn't make sense for us to kind of set all of that up, I guess. Prematurely is not the right word, but, before, maybe it is.
Yeah, right back to
ready.
again, it's it's all about priorities and working through those.
Yeah.
So, Laura, our final 5 questions. So, what do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
Every problem is my problem.
Yes, well, as you grow, will you start following the 3 Ds?
Yeah, exactly. I like that.
And your favourite business book, which has helped you the most?
Radek Saleh's How to Build a $1 billion business, I think it's called.
I haven't come across that. I have to put them on the list.
Yeah, it's good. It's a really good read. Loved it.
Yeah, good. And any great podcast or online learning tools?
Yeah, it's probably a bit of a left of field one, but I really like the Imperfects podcast by Hugh Van Carlenberg. I think he has the Resilience Project, and whilst it's not strictly business related, resilience is probably one of the biggest things that you have to have in running a small business. And I think there's a lot of value in drawing from other people's experiences in having to, go through difficult situations, show resilience. And I just love that podcast.
Oh, I haven't heard that one either, so I'll have to search that one out. And one tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
This is a really boring one. Well, actually, no. I'm going to do two boring ones. Xero and Shopify. They're just they just make my life easy.
Yep.
And, I think Shopify, just allows someone who's not talented in building a website to build a website. And, I think basic tools like that help you get things done are really helpful.
Mm. Yep. No, two very good software solutions, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And lastly, what would you tell yourself on day one of starting out, sort of going back 4 years?
No matter how hard it gets, you'll make it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, there's almost, it's good to go in naive because you have the inspiration that you need to get started and the drive and the motivation to get started. And then I think, being able to sort of deal with the lows as they happen and come through it is super important. But yeah, it's certainly harder than I thought it was going to be, but I still would do it all again anyway.
Yeah, so that's probably a common feedback from most small business owners, and it's the journey that's the exciting bit. And actually, doing things you sort of set out to do. But I think, like you're doing, you get your support network around you, and that's what Grow Small Business is about. Using our experience and tools, templates, and programs to help small business owners grow and sort of dodge those blind spots along the way.
Yeah, exactly.
I really appreciate your time, Laura. It's a great story so far, and I'm going to watch with interest, and hopefully you might catch up in maybe 12 months, a couple of years, and hear the next iteration.
Yeah, sounds really good. Thank you so much for having me. It's been really nice.
No, great chatting.
We'd greatly appreciate you taking a couple of minutes to leave our podcast a review on iTunes. If you don't have an account, simply follow us on Spotify. You'll help other small business owners find the cast and valuable content our guests share.